In terms of approach, I think that there's I think that different practices require a different approach in the same
Mm,
way that different jams require a different approach. So if you're trying to I think that people tend to get stuck, right? Breaking is to me a combinations of hills, peaks, valleys, and plateaus, right? You're going to go up, you're going to go down, and you're going to plateau for a while. And a lot of times the plateaus last the longest. And that's usually when people quit or they just get stuck there forever and never go up or down ever again.
mm,
They just where they're at. And a lot of times you plateau because you're so busy trying to maintain like your own personal skill level and your ego because you're like, all right, well, I'm this level within my scene. I can't lose to this guy. And so in order to not lose to this guy, I have to keep maintaining what I'm doing. And so it's like, all right, well, you're so focused on not losing that you're not ever advancing. And in order to make progress, you have to fail. And it's like, so being so stuck in the idea of I can't lose to this guy, but I want to beat this guy. But you're not throwing your new shit to beat the new guy because you're like, this is my one chance to beat that guy. I'm gonna throw what I'm comfortable with, and it's like, well, why don't you try that new move or try that one combo that you haven't hit yet? And it's like, well, it's not ready. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, you're gonna fail, but then you're not gonna throw it against the other guy because you're afraid to lose to them. So you're not gonna throw it against the guy that you can't beat because you think that if you miss it, you're not going to win. And then you're not going to throw it against the guy that you know you can beat because you're also worried about the exact same thing. It's like that's where the different jams come in because if you go to a local jam, like local jam, you've already got your skill level and your own mentality established. Like you should be comfortable with where you're at and know that also like decide what your own breaking means to you, right?
mm,
if if you are so focused, like I always tell myself, am I more concerned with what people think of me or am I more concerned with where I want to end up? And it's like the focus of my journey is there somebody else might be looking at, oh, he's right here, but I'm focused on the finish line all the way over there. They're focused on the finish line of did he win this jam or not? I'm thinking, did I get to this level or not? Right. And
wow.
so for a local jam, it's like, all right, cool. This is where I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try out all my new stuff and like see what works, see what doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And then for like the big level jams, that's when you're like, all right, this is the stuff that I've like cemented together. It's kind of like comedy. Like you'll see a lot of famous comedians, they'll go
Mm,
to like a local bar or club or something like that and do like their quick 5 minute stand up to test out their new material. And then they'll
mm,
see what works. And then they take that to the Netflix comedy special, you know?
yeah, exactly. Or then, it can backfire like Matt Rife, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, it
No,
must have
I
worked
was
for
playing.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I wanted to go back to the peaks and valleys because I think we all go through this and not a lot of people talk about it as well. How do you explained to us about the plateau that we go through and
Mm.
the mindset of it and like we're so focused and fixated on just trying to maintain ourselves. How do you kind of get yourself out of those plateaus that you go through? For me,
Yeah.
personally, I feel like I'm just uninspired and I'm not thinking big enough in a lot of the time.
Mm.
Um, how does it feel when you go through that and what do you do?
Well, it changes. It changes each time. Like I feel like every time I get out of a plateau, it takes a long time and I have to kind of ultimately it's asking yourself what you want, right? Because it's
Mm,
like if you're bored with breaking right now, you're like, I'm bored, I'm uninspired, like I'm either tired of like the breaking circuits I'm in, or I'm tired of battling the same people, or even you're tired of your own content, then it's like, all right, well, if you're tired of your own content, what do you want your content to look like, right? Like
mm,
you might want to get better, but everybody wants to get better. Like you have to start thinking what your vision is. If you're
mm,
like the people that you're battling, then it's like, all right, well, now you need to make a plan. Like, and I'm going through the same thing right now. Like I've been kind of on a plateau for like I want to say the past like 2, 3 years. And what ended up happening was I was like, okay, well, what do I want out of breaking? Like, what are my goals? And I'm like, where's my skill at now and where do I want it to be? And I'm like, well, like I thought of all the people that I was like most inspired when I first started breaking, like
Mm,
what the first thing that attracted me to breaking was, like who was like the first person that I saw that like really blew my mind and made me think, yo, this is some next level shit. And it's like I started thinking back and it's like people like physics, people like Junior, people like Machine, like they were just doing all kinds of crazy shit. And I'm like, oh yeah, actually, I've always been about like balances, freezes, stalls, stacks.
mm,
And and I'm like, yo, but I never actually trained it to like its pinnacle. So I'm like,
mm,
well, competitions and all this other stuff, what happens if I just decide that's what I want? If I just want to be able to beat physics and what he does in terms of like stacks and shit, what does that mean for my training? And I'm like, well, that means I got to have everything on both sides. And that also means I got to be comfortable in all these freezes to be able to catch everything.
mm,
And then realizing how much work that was going to take got me all inspired again because I'm like, this is the kind of shit that I used to do when I was at home. Like, when I was a
mhm.
kid in middle school, like, yo, you're just sitting in front of your TV doing handstands in the commercial break of Dragon Ball Z. So I'm just like, oh, now I'm over here practicing like my baby freeze on my opposite side or like whatever, whatever. And I'm like, it brings back that same level of excitement you had when you were a kid doing it. And then it's
Oh,
just like, rather than telling myself I'm good enough where I'm at now and let me just work on something else, it's like, yo, what is the absolute pinnacle? And then on top of that, it was like, well, I'm tired of value because I'm not as there's not nearly as much stuff going on these days, and I've battled a lot of the same people over and over again. And so it's like, oh, well, then why don't I go international? And then it's like, all right, and my crew is down to go international. And then on top of that, I'm like, well, if I'm gonna go international, then I have to be at a higher skill level, which means I still need to work on these moves that I'm working on, which then
right.
doubles down on exactly what I was doing. I'm like, I got my crew, I'm gonna be traveling, I'm gonna be battling, I'm going to be at a higher level against people I don't know. Because part of it is, yo, once everybody's your friend, you kind of lose that fire. You're like, all right, I know these people. I've run this like same bracket for like however many years. You get tired of it. So you just got to find something new.
That's it, man. Wow. Something that like brings back that beginner phase again in your breaking for sure. I was doing that yesterday actually. I was kind of actually feeling a bit uninspired for maybe the last month, and
Mm,
that's kind of what I reverted back to. I was like, wait, why do I dance again? Why do I like this? And I actually started to get better, like
yeah.
because of that. I was just
So
doing
what
my
was your
life.
reason? What's your
Well,
what's your current why, as into why you're breaking?
well, my why before my current why, it was I want to go to the Olympics. And
Oh,
then
sick.
I didn't we in Australia we had the Oceanic Championship and I didn't make it through. Only the winner goes through. And then after that, I did hit like a I was like really sad, man. I was being like a sook for like a couple of weeks, as that's normal, you know, you put all your eggs in one basket for a while and nothing turns out the way you want. But then
Yeah.
I just wanted to dance because I wanted to do it for myself. But now my goal was I just want to be fresh.
Oh
And
yeah.
now you kind of like you don't care. Like we were talking about with the battles, you don't really care what goes like what's happening anymore. If you win or lose, I'm ready to lose. I'm ready to kind of look like a fool and try things out. And then I just saw the growth in my breaking again. I was like, wow, sick. This is what happens when you don't put pressure on yourself.